Hello, Anand. How are you? In snow, I understand. Shushmita just told me you all snowed in.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good to see you. And welcome, everyone. We're on chapter 37 of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna this evening. The Master and Narendra. Sunday, March 1st, 1885. Sri Ramakrishna was seated on the small couch in his room, absorbed in deep samadhi. Mahimacharan, Ram, Manamohan, Nabai Chaitanya, M., and other devotees were sitting on a mat spread on the floor. They were watching the Master intently. It was the day of the Dol Jatra, a Hindu religious festival. Sri Krishna and Radha are the central figures of this celebration, their images being placed on a swing which is rocked now and then. A red powder is showered on the images. Later, friends and relatives throw the powder at one another. This festival is celebrated when winter passes into spring on a full moon day rendered doubly sacred by its association with the birth of Sri Chaitanya. The devotees saw that the Master was returning to consciousness of the world, though his mind still lingered in the realm of God vision. The Master said to Mahimacharan, "My dear sir, please tell us something about the love of God." Mahimacharan chanted the following lines from the Narada Pancharatra. What need is there of penance if God is worshipped with love? What is the use of penance if God is not worshipped with love? What need is there of penance if God is seen within and without? What is the use of penance if God is not seen within and without? O Brahman, O my child, cease from practicing further penances. Hasten to Shankara, the ocean of heavenly wisdom. Obtain from him the love of God, the pure love praised by devotees, which snaps in twain the shackles that bind you to the world. Mahima said, once, while the great sage Narada was practicing austerity, he suddenly heard a heavenly voice repeating those lines. Master, there are two classes of devotees, Jivakotis, or ordinary men, and Ishvarakotis, or divine messengers. The Jivakotis' devotion to God is called Vaidhi, formal. That is, it conforms to spiritual laws. He worships God with a fixed number of articles, repeats God's holy name a specified number of times, and so on and so forth. This kind of devotion, like the path of knowledge, leads to the knowledge of God and to samadhi. The Jivakoti does not return from samadhi to the relative plane. But the case of the Ishwarakoti is different. He follows the process of negation and affirmation. First, he negates the world, realizing that it is not Brahman, and then he affirms the same world, seeing it as the manifestation of Brahman. To give an illustration, a man wanting to climb to the roof first negates the stairs as not being the roof. But on reaching the roof, he finds that the stairs are made of the same materials as the roof, brick, lime, and brick dust. Then he can either move up and down the stairs or remain on the roof as he pleases. Shukadev was absorbed in samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, jata samadhi. Since Shuka was to recite the Bhagavata to King Parikshit, the Lord sent the sage Narada to him. Narada saw him seated like an inert thing, absolutely unconscious of the world around him. Thereupon, Narada sang 4 couplets on the beauty of Hari to the accompaniment of the veena. While the first couplet was being sung, the hair on Shuka's body stood on end. Next he shed tears, for he saw the form of God, the embodiment of spirit within himself in his heart. Thus, Shukadev saw the form of God even after Jada Samadhi. He was an Ishwarakoti. Hanuman, after having the vision of God both with form and without, remained firmly devoted to the form of Rama, the embodiment of consciousness and bliss. Prahlada sometimes realized, I am he. Sometimes he felt that he was the servant of God. How can such a person live without love of God? That is why he must accept the relationship of master and servant, feeling that God is the master and himself the servant. This enables him to enjoy the bliss of Hari. In this attitude, he feels that God is the bliss and he himself is the enjoyer. The ego of devotion, the ego of knowledge, and the ego of a child do not harm the devotee. Shankaracharya kept the ego of knowledge. The ego of a child is not attached to anything. The child is beyond the three gunas. He is not under the control of any of them. One moment you find him angry, the next moment it is all over. One moment you see him building his playhouse. The next moment he forgets all about it. Now you see him love his playmates. But if they are out of his sight a few days, he forgets all about them. A child is not under the control of any of the gunas, rajas, sattva, rajas, or tamas. The bhakta feels, O God, thou art the Lord and I am thy devotee. This I is the ego of bhakti. Why does such a lover of God retain the ego of devotion? There is a reason. The ego cannot be got rid of. So let the rascal remain as a servant of God, the devotee of God. You may reason 1,000 times, but you cannot get rid of the ego. The ego is like a pitcher, and Brahman like the ocean, an infinite expanse of water on all sides. The pitcher is set in this ocean. The water is both inside and out. The water is everywhere, yet the pitcher remains. Now this pitcher is the ego of the devotee. As long as the ego remains, you and I remain. And there also remains the feeling, O God, thou art the Lord, and I am thy devotee. Thou art the master, and I am thy servant. You may reason 1,000,000 times, but you cannot get rid of it. But it is different if there is no pitcher. Narendra entered the room and saluted the master. They began to talk together. Presently, the master came down from the couch and sat on the floor, on which a mat had been spread. In the meantime, the room had become filled with people, both devotees and visitors. Master to Narendra, are you well? I hear that you often visit Girish Ghosh at his house. Is it true? Narendra, yes, sir. I go there now and then. Girish had been visiting Sri Ramakrishna for some months. The master said that none could fathom the depth of Girish's faith, and his longing for God was as intense as his faith was deep. At home, he was always absorbed in the thought of Sri Ramakrishna. Many of the master's devotees visited him. They talked only about Sri Ramakrishna. But Girish was a householder who had had varied experiences of worldly life. And the master knew that Narendra would renounce the world, that he would shun lust and greed, both mentally and outwardly. Master, do you visit Girish frequently? No matter how much one washes a cup that has contained a solution of garlic, still a trace of the smell will certainly linger. The youngsters who come here are pure souls, untouched by lust and greed. Men who have associated a long time with lust and greed smell of the garlic, as it were. They are like a mango pecked by crows. Such a fruit cannot be offered to the deity in the temple, and you would hesitate to eat it yourself. Again, take the case of a new pot and another in which curd has been made. One is afraid to keep milk in the second pot, for the milk very often turns sour. Householder devotees like Girish form a class by themselves. They desire yoga and also bhoga, enjoyment. Their attitude is that of Ravana, who wanted to enjoy the maidens of heaven and at the same time realize Rama. They are like the Asuras, the demons, who enjoy various pleasures and also realize Narayana. Narendra, but Girish has given up his old associates. Master, yes. He is like a bull castrated in old age. In Burdwan, I once saw an ox moving among the cows. I asked a bullock cart driver, "What is this, an ox? How strange." He said to me, "True, sir, but it was castrated in old age, and so it hasn't altogether shaken off the old tendencies." In a certain place, there sat some sannyasinis. A young woman happened to pass by. All continued as before to meditate on God, except one of them, who cast sidelong glances at her. Before becoming a monk, he had been the father of 3 children. If you make a solution of garlic in a cup, won't it be hard to remove the smell from it? Can a worthless tree like the babui produce mangoes? Of course, such a thing may become possible through the occult powers of a yogi, but can everyone acquire such powers? When have worldly people time to think of God? A man wanted to engage a pundit who would explain the Bhagavata to him. His friend said, "I know an excellent pundit, but there is one difficulty. He does a great deal of farming. He has 4 plows and 8 bullocks and is always busy with them. He has no leisure." Thereupon the man said, "I don't care for a pundit who has no leisure. I am not looking for a Bhagavata scholar burdened with plows and bullocks. I want a pundit who can really expound the sacred book to me." There was a king who used to listen daily to a pundit's exposition of the Bhagavata. Every day at the end of their study, the pundit would ask the king, "O king, have you understood what I have read?" To this question, the king would daily give the same reply, "Sir, you had better understand it first yourself." Each day when the pundit returned home, he would ponder the meaning of the king's words. He was a pious man, devoted to prayer and meditation. Gradually, he came to his senses and realized that the only real thing in the world is the lotus feet of God, and that all else is illusory. He felt dispassion for the world and took up the life of a monk. As he was leaving the world, he sent a man to the king with the message, "Yes, O king, now I have understood." But do I look down on worldly people? Of course not. When I see them, I apply the knowledge of Brahman, the oneness of existence. Brahman itself has become everything. All are Narayan himself. Regarding all women as so many forms of the Divine Mother, I see no difference between a chaste woman and a streetwalker. Alas, I find no customers who want anything better than Kalai Pulse. No one wants to give up lust and greed. Man, deluded by the beauty of women and the power of money, forgets God. But to one who has seen the beauty of God, even the position of Brahma, the Creator, seems insignificant. A man said to Ravana, "You have been going to Sita in different disguises. Why don't you go to her in the form of Rama? But Ravana replied, when I meditate on Rama in my heart, the most beautiful women, celestial maidens like Ramba and Tilotama, appear no better than the ashes of a funeral pyre. Then even the position of Brahma appears trivial to me, not to speak of the beauty of another man's wife. Alas, I find that all customers here seek worthless kalai-pulse. Unless the soul is pure, it cannot have genuine love of God and single-minded devotion to the ideal. The mind wanders away to various objects. To Manamohan. You may take offense at my words, but I said to Rakal, who's his brother-in-law, I would rather hear that you had drowned yourself in the Ganges than learn that you have accepted a job under another person and become his servant. One day a Nepalese girl came here. She sang devotional songs to the accompaniment of the esraj. When someone asked her if she was married, she said sharply, "What? I am the handmaid of God. Whom else could I serve?" How can a man living in the midst of lust and greed realize God? It is very hard for him to lead an unattached life. First, he is the slave of his wife, second, of money, and third, of the master whom he serves. When Akbar was emperor of Delhi, there lived a hermit in a hut in the forest. Many people visited the holy man. At one time, he felt a great desire to entertain his visitors. But how could he do so without money? So he decided to go to the emperor for help. For the gate of Akbar's palace was always open to holy men. The hermit entered the palace while the emperor was at his daily devotions and took a seat in a corner of the room. He heard the emperor conclude his worship with the prayer, "O God, give me money, give me riches," and so on and so forth. When the hermit heard this, he was about to leave the prayer hall, but the emperor signed to him to wait. When the prayer was over, Akbar said to him, "You came to see me. How is it that you were about to leave without saying anything to me?" "Your Majesty need not trouble yourself about it," answered the hermit. "I must leave now." When the emperor insisted, the hermit said, "Many people visit my hut, and so I came here to ask you for some money." Then said Akbar, "Why are you going away without speaking to me?" The hermit replied, "I found that you too were a beggar. You too prayed to God for money and riches. Thereupon I said to myself, why should I beg of a beggar? If I must beg, let me beg of God." Narendra. Nowadays, Girish Ghosh thinks nothing but spiritual things. Master, that's very good, but why is he so abusive? Why does he use such vulgar language to me? In my present state of mind, I cannot bear such rudeness. When a thunderbolt strikes near a house, the heavy things inside the house are not much affected, but the window panes rattle. Nowadays, I cannot bear such roughness. A man living on the plane of Sattva cannot bear noise and uproar. That is why Hridoy was sent away. It was the Divine Mother who sent him away. During the latter part of his stay, he went to extremes. He became rough and abusive to Narendra. Do you agree with Girish about me? Narendra. He said he believed you to be an incarnation of God. I didn't say anything in answer to his remarks. Master, how great his faith is. Don't you think so? The devotees listened intently to the master's words. He was still seated on the mat spread on the floor with M by his side and Narendra in front of him. The devotees were sitting around. After a few minutes' silence, he said to Narendra tenderly, "My child, You will not attain God without renouncing lust and greed. As he said this, great emotion welled up in his heart. Fixing on Narendra an earnest and tender look, he sang. Now the footnote here. This was a very critical period in Narendra's life. After his father's death, he had been faced with extreme poverty. Friends and relatives had proved indifferent or treacherous. His rational mind could not reconcile the existence of human misery with the mercy of God. A few days before this meeting with the Master, on his way home, almost exhausted after a futile search for a job, he had sat down on the open porch of a house by the street, waiting for a shower of rain to pass. There he had received a revelation in which he had found the solution of all his conflicting problems. He had felt refreshed, realizing the unreality of the world, and had determined to become a monk at once. So he had come to the Master to take leave of him, but had not told him his intention. Yet nothing could be hidden from Sri Ramakrishna, hence the song. We are afraid to speak, and yet we are afraid to keep still. O minds, O Radha, half believe that we are about to lose you. We tell you the secret that we know, the secret whereby we ourselves and others, with our help, have passed through many a time of peril. Now it all depends on you. Sri Ramakrishna seemed to be afraid lest Narendra should leave him. Narendra looked at the Master with tears in his eyes. A visitor who was there for the first time heard and saw all this. He said to the Master, "Sir, if one must renounce lust and greed, then what should a householder do?" Master, you may enjoy lust and greed. What has passed between us is of no concern of yours. Mahimacharan, a householder devotee, heard everything and sat speechless. Master to Mahima, go forward, push on. You will discover the forest of sandalwood. Go further and you will find the silver mine. Go further still and you will see the gold mine. Do not stop there. Go forward and you will reach the mines of rubies and diamonds. Therefore I say, go forward. Mahima, but sir, something holds us back. We can't move. Master with a smile, why? Cut the reins. Cut them with the sword of God's name. The shackles of Kala, time, are cut by Kali's name. Every now and then, the Master cast his gracious look on Narendra. He said, have you now become an experienced physician? Quoting a Sanskrit verse, he said, he who has killed only 100 patients is a novice in medicine, but he becomes an expert after killing 1,000. Was the Master hinting that Narendra, even though still young, had had many painful experiences of life? Narendra smiled and kept silent. Are there any questions or anything to discuss of what we've read yet? Okay, then we have a little time. It was afternoon. The devotees were seated around the Master, listening to Nabai Chaitanya's singing. Suddenly the Master left the room, but the music continued. M accompanied the Master. Sri Ramakrishna walked across the courtyard and entered the temple of Radhakanta. He bowed down before the images, M following him. There was some red powder in a tray. The Master offered a little powder to the images and bowed down again. Next, he proceeded to the Kali temple. Passing up the 7 steps, he stood on the open porch and looked at the image. Then he entered the shrine. offered red powder to the Divine Mother, and saluted her. As he left the temple, he asked Im, "Why didn't you bring Babaram with you?" Sri Ramakrishna returned to his room, accompanied by Im and another devotee carrying the tray of red powder. He offered a little of it to all the pictures of gods and goddesses in his room, but not to those of Jesus Christ and himself. Then he threw the powder on the bodies of Narendra and the other devotees. They all took the dust of his feet. And I think we'll stop there for this evening. Any questions, comments?
Was Babaram an Ishwar-Koti?
I do believe he was.
He was not?
I believe he was.
Okay, because they said in the very beginning of this section that the Ishwar-Kotis are different. They follow the process of negation and affirmation. And it seemed that Babaram was very much of a bhakta as far as his external attitude. Being an incarnation apparently of Radha. I was just trying to put it in context and understand that.
Well, I believe they're not contradictory. I believe you can be a bhakta and still do negation and affirmation. Because as Ramakrishna said, Babaram had a feminine nature.
Right.
And Narendra had a masculine nature. Now the Jnani path is more common to the masculine nature, but I don't believe that negation and affirmation, that's more of the tantric approach, and that can be devotional at the same time. Is my understanding. Any other comments or questions? What's the feedback?
I think it's her microphone. I think it's you on Amrita's computer.
Oh. Okay. All right, then I think we'll stop. Did everyone have a good Christmas? I know they were small and intimate rather than getting together with lots of people, but I hope you all had a good Christmas and happy New Year. Now we'll see you after the New Year. Okay, we'll end with the chant. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ram